What if you had a toolkit for thinking, a way to really inspect your most basic beliefs, the assumptions you live by every single day? Well, that's exactly what philosophy is. And today, using this OpenStax intro text as our guide, we're going to build that toolkit together. We're going to explore what philosophy is, why it's such a powerful activity, and how it can help you lead a more examined life.
So, let's kick things off with a pretty intense challenge, one that was issued more than 2,000 years ago by one of history's most famous thinkers.
I mean, really think about the weight of those words. The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates, he wasn't just being dramatic. He was so committed to this idea of constantly questioning everything that when he was sentenced to death, he chose to die rather than stop doing philosophy. He literally preferred death over a life without questioning.
It's a great question, right? It sounds really profound, but what do you do? What does it actually mean in practice? Well, this very question is the starting point for our whole journey.
See, this right here gets to the heart of it. Philosophy isn't just some dusty old subject you study, like history or biology. It's an activity. It's something you do. It's the process of looking at the world and at your own beliefs and constantly asking, wait, why? Is that really true? It is the toolkit for inspecting the very foundations we all live on.
All right, so the first tool in our new kit, man, it tackles one of the biggest questions you could possibly ask. What is truly real? This is the wild world of metaphysics.
This little acorn is a perfect example of a metaphysical puzzle. Is it an oak tree? Well, not yet, but it has the potential to be. So are they the same thing, just at different stages? Or is there some kind of unchanging oakness that defines them both? These are exactly the kinds of questions metaphysics dives into. So metaphysics, at its core, is all about the fundamental nature of existence. It asks the big stuff, like what's the relationship between your mind and your brain? What makes you the same person you were 10 years ago? What are the basic building blocks of the whole universe?
And you know, this isn't just a Greek obsession. Thinkers all over the world were wrestling with this. For Plato, the really real was this perfect, unchanging world of ideas, and our physical world is just a flickering shadow of that. But then you look at Aztec philosophy, and for them, ultimate reality was Teotl, this single, sacred, divine energy that makes up everything. Two totally different answers to the same fundamental question.
Okay, so if the nature of reality is so up for debate, that leads to a really critical follow-up question. How can we be sure we know anything about it at all?
Our senses are our main windows to the world, right? But take a look at this. The two horizontal lines are exactly the same length. I know, it's hard to believe. I'm willing to bet your brain is screaming that the top one is shorter. This just goes to show that our perception, our most basic source of information, can be totally misleading. And this is where epistemology comes in. It's basically the theory of knowledge. It forces us to get really serious about what it means to truly know something instead of just believing it. How do we justify our beliefs and separate real knowledge from, just an opinion or a lucky guess?
And what's so fascinating is that modern psychology is totally catching up to what philosophers have been worried about for centuries. We now have proof that our brains are hardwired with these things called cognitive biases. They're like mental shortcuts that help us get through the day, but they can also lead our reasoning way off track.
So all of this kind of builds up to what might be the most practical and personal philosophical question of them all. After thinking about reality and knowledge, how should we actually live our lives and treat each other?
This is the realm of ethics, or value theory, and it goes way beyond just a simple list of do's and don'ts. It tries to explore the very foundations of our moral beliefs. What really makes an action right or wrong in the first place?
And again, this question spans the entire globe. What is just amazing is the parallel here. Thousands of miles apart, both the Greek philosopher Socrates and the Yoruba sage Orunmila came to a strikingly similar conclusion. People do wrong things out of ignorance of what's truly good, not because they have some deep desire to be evil. Meanwhile, over in ancient China, Confucius came at the question from a different angle. For him, a good life wasn't about one single principle, but about constantly working on key virtues, like Ren, this idea of shared humanity, that guide how we act and relate to everyone else in our community. So, we've explored the massive questions of what's real, what we can know, and how we should live. Now, let's get practical. Let's actually assemble the toolkit for thinking like a philosopher.
I love this metaphor. Think of all your beliefs as a house.
Philosophy, and especially logic, gives you the tools to go down into the basement and check the foundations. Is everything solid, or are there some cracks and contradictions down there you've never even noticed?
Here is a basic 3-step method you can apply to almost anything you read or hear. First, whenever you hear a claim, identify the actual argument. What's the main point, and what's the evidence for it? Second, check for coherence. Do all of a person's beliefs actually fit together, or do they contradict each other? And third, become a detective. Actively hunt for counterexamples, that one single instance that could prove a sweeping statement wrong.
And that's really the big takeaway here. The goal of philosophy isn't to walk away with a perfect final set of answers. It's about becoming a more reflective, a more precise, and a more self-aware thinker. It's really about upgrading your mental software.
So philosophy hands you the toolkit. And the real question isn't just what you'll examine, but how that examination will change you. Because a life of questioning, it's not about finding all the right answers. It's about learning how to live with better and better questions. And that is the challenge and the reward of an examined life.